Hello, everyone. My name is Vamsi Kanuri. I'm an associate professor of marketing at the University of Notre Dame. Today, I'm here to talk about one of my recently accepted papers at Palm Journal titled Mitigating Customer Churn After Financial Fraud, The Value of Blame Attribution. This is joint work with my late colleague Sriram Sumanchi at the University of Notre Dame and Rahul Talang at Carnegie Mellon University. Just so we are on the same page about account-based fraud. What is account-based fraud? In an account-based fraudulent transaction, perpetrators, who are also frequently referred to as bad actors, siphon away money from a customer's financial account without their knowledge or the knowledge of the bank. There are several examples of account-based frauds, including social engineering scams, such as phishing, pretexting, and also credential stuffing scams. It is very well known that account-based fraud is pervasive and recurrent, even though banks continue to invest significant sums of money into fraud detection and mitigation. So this begs a question, is it even worth expending resources into investigating account-based frauds? First, it is hard to detect account-based fraud. Then, customers actually receive full refund of the money lost to fraud, regardless of whether banks are able to identify perpetrators or not. Three, the chances of finding a perpetrator are quite low. So, for these reasons, there are several stakeholders have made a case that banks shouldn't be investing as many resources as they're currently investing into account-based fraud. Hence, we asked this question following all of these claims. We wanted to understand, does blame attribution or lack of it following an account-based fraud really affect customer behavior? And is there a short and long-term effect of blame attribution or lack of it? And finally, are there any contingencies to the effect of blame attribution on customer behavior? To study these questions, we partnered with a top 10 US bank by market share. We only focus on commercial banking customers. We put together a rich, unbalanced panel data set involving about 423,000 distinct customers who were tracked quarterly for 5 years. Of these customers, about 23,000 customers experienced account-based fraud. The other 400,000 customers served as a control group because they've never experienced fraud at this particular bank. What do we find? Well, lack of blame attribution hurts. So it's sort of like a double deviation effect where the bank first makes a mistake by not identifying this fraudulent activity, and the second mistake is not identifying the perpetrator. That is bad for customer retention. That's what we find. This is sort of like an obvious finding, but a good uh, gut check sort of finding. However, the counterintuitive finding is that with blame attribution, that is the small number of cases where banks are able to identify the perpetrator, in those cases, customers become more loyal than those that have never experienced fraud. This is the classic service recovery paradox, and we believe we are one of the very few that show the service recovery paradox in the field using field data. We also document numerous short-term and long-term effects, and to this end, we essentially suggest to banks that service recovery or blame attribution, in fact, should be seen as a starting point of the recovery process rather than the end. Loss in customer trust seems to be serving as the mechanism explaining these retaliatory behaviors, especially in cases where there's lack of blame attribution. So the bottom line is to this big question we asked at the very beginning, um, is it even worth it for banks to invest money or expend resources into fraud investigation? Our research shows that the answer is a resounding yes, and we do recommend that the banks continue to invest in those activities in the paper, we actually make an economic case for it. I encourage you to go to the paper and take a look at the findings. The effects are quite big. Finally, we would like to acknowledge the support from the PNC Center for Financial Service Innovation at Carnegie Mellon University that helped us identify this data set to study the questions. The third author, Rahul Telang, acknowledges the generous support of the NSF Eager Grant. Thank you so much.